on this planet Earth is to protect this planet, and my message to everyone is spread the message of love, respect, whether a child across the globe is getting enough protection, food, and whether basic needs are met with food, security, financial needs, and they are getting. Think about other fellow human beings, whether they are in our neighborhood or in our town, in country, across the globe, then that will be humanity concept. Welcome, citizens of the world. Welcome to this important seminar on humanity, honoring heroes of our time. I'm Dr. Moby, welcoming you all, and I would like to start my conversation on humanity. What is humanity? Well, in simple terms, we are all born as human beings, and if we think about our primitive needs only, and if for a second we go and think about other fellow human beings, whether they are in our neighborhood or in our town, in country, across the globe, then that will be humanity concept. For a second, think of whether a child across the globe is getting enough protection, food, and whether basic needs are met with food, security, financial needs, and they are getting enough medication or not. So this is an important concept. Remember, there are many things that divide us, but there is only one humanity that unites us. Remember, our sole mission on this planet Earth is to protect this planet, and my message to everyone is spread the message of love, respect, hope, and also selflessness, and also protect the environment. Thank you for listening and joining. Let's hear other participants.
Hi, everyone. Thank you once again for coming together for the third International Humanity Summit. And I am Vicky Astra, the facilitator and the host. And the first person I'd like to call upon is Dr. Moby as the TV sponsor. And he is the TV sponsor of this wonderful international show. Lifestyle TV USA by Dr. Moby is ranked #1 as a professional podcast TV and ranked 56 worldwide as the podcast. So I would like to thank so much Dr. Moby for being with us, and also thanks so much to Bernice, who is the tech expert behind the whole digital metaverse that we are experiencing right now. Thank you so much to www.lomancreativeservices.com. That's Loman Creative Services. And I want to welcome all of you. And the purpose of today's very important event, and I think it wraps up wonderfully for 2021. And as we look back in 2020 and 2021, I was talking to Bernice in the pre-event promo that about 5 million people has died without a bullet being shot from COVID-19, and I think people died because so that we can live. So I think we're entering into a new phase of humanity. How should 2021 end, and how should 2022 be? And I think the world is given a new lease of life. Should we revert back to the humanity before? And if we are given a chance, how should the world be? So that's the objective of today's meeting. And we have got with us 3 doctors in the house. I'd like to welcome Dr. Moby.
Hello, everyone.
Virginia. And then we also have Dr. Latasha Holden. And then we also from India, we've got Dr. Ashok Kumar Banwal, all the way from India. He's going to come in a little bit later. And then we'd like to also welcome and thank CJ Ives Lopez, the award winning author, to chair today's session right after Dr. Moby's speech. So, once again, I'd like to thank all of you for making this happen in Singapore. And we have entered into a new era of the metaverse. So, I'd like to thank you so much. And I'm so excited that we are empowered with the technology in our hands. And can you imagine, with the new era 2022 that's coming, I think we are showing the world the model that we do. Amongst the differences, the diversity, the divides, we can come together, have conversation, and find commonalities among us. So, without further ado, Dr. Moby, the floor is yours. As a TV sponsor, would you like to say a few words, Dr. Moby?
Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Mobi with Lifestyle TV, and thank you, Vicky, and hello, citizens of the world. Thank you, honorable speakers here, and I'm so honored to meet all of you, and I'm so honored to give keynote speech to everyone around the world. It's a great honor for me. I think we have to take a pause and realize we are in end of 2021 and hopefully starting better 2022. Modern technology has given planes, robots, phones, video calls, but imagine if we didn't have humans on either end. And today, if I was talking to another robot, then would a machine feel my fellow human beings being in Asia, Africa, or Europe who did not eat, did not get medication, or there are parts in the world did not get vaccines because they could not afford it. It is great to have science and technology, but cannot become machine which we create. It will be a downgrade for humans. And just remember, robots and machine can get software updates, but they can never become humans. So for me, remember robots and humans, they are helpful to each other, but humans are the only one who have love for each other. I can reach out to any human being or my fellow citizen who need my help, and all we need is love, feeling, and compassion. Remember, it takes a lot of money and time to develop machines, but spend few minutes to spread the love and respect and humanity. I think more than technology, we need each other. So, my fellow citizens, spread the love. There are 7.9 billion people on this earth. Every species, plant, or animal contributing to planet Earth. Unfortunately, humans are the only one. I wish we were contributing more. We are more destroying this beautiful planet than any species. We were put on this planet to help each other and to build it back. On Earth, humans are the only species which can really do this job safely. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are many religions around the world, and backbone of every religion emphasize on humanities. So, everybody who's watching, please read the main message of each religion, and it is to believe in humanity. That is the main religion, in my opinion. Being believer of humanity, not just being born human. So my action plan is labeled Act Locally, Think Globally. Try to help one person by doing at least some good deed every day. It can be simple as checking on your neighbors, donating to local food bank, visiting hospitals, donating charities, even spreading the good message, or any action we can do. Just remember, this is for our future, for all our future generations. Above all, take care of yourselves so you can continue to do this amazing job. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moby. Um, I'd like to express my thanks to Dr. Moby, who has been such a great supporter and sponsor of this event. And we are running the third event today. And this is possible because of the technology, the fourth industrialization that we've entered. And not diminishing, other aspects of life, but I would think that technology will be the oxygen that will be pervasive in every part of our lives, and IoTs, Internet of Things, in every part of our lives. And I think personally, to be doing this, it comes from a place of that we should have a conversation with amongst each other and letting us each other know what's happening in your community and in your local context. And for myself, I've traveled around the world in about 25 countries. Um, I went, and as I really visit a lot of places, I feel that the question in my mind, I was talking to Bernice, why is there in 2020 or 2021 that we still have like houses that are broken, children who are not going to school, streets that are not manned, and also infrastructure that is broken. I think the world has enough of resources. And if the systems of the governments are broken, I think it leaves with intelligent people like us, right? To really put our heads together and say, hey, what are the steps we can take together to move humanity forward? And I hope that 2020, 2021 will herald a new era for humanity as we emerge out of the pandemic. And I'd like to invite Ms. CJ Ives Lopez, the award-winning author, and also the chairwoman of this event. The floor is yours, CJ.
Thank you, Vicky, and welcome to Humanity, everybody. Each of you is a thought leader within your field of expertise, or as my talented colleague Gabby Garland states, your zone of genius. The magic that this summit is showing the world is that humanity is more significant than one individual. Humanity is the sum of all. And collectively, we can create a space that anybody belongs and is embraced, where peace prevails, and we can reach those in locations that battle for the primitive demands and aid them. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a few names who are the catalysts that brought this summit together. Vicky Esther Chang, our digital mastermind and creator of DM Metropolis, along with It's My Life magazine, envisioned a platform where everyone can come together, and she made it happen. Thank you, Vicky, my friend. Dr. Moby, the world renowned doctor and award winning television personality, providing us his amazing platform to shine and bring this summit to the world stage. We honor you and thank you for your kindness and selfless dedication to the human spirit. Bernice Lohman brings her technical expertise to the summit by providing us with the multimedia platform and support and the full backing of her brilliant mind. Without Bernice, we could not continue with such a smooth operation. And all of our guests and viewers who have come from around the world to convene in one place. Thank you for showing how we can make a difference starting today. I look forward to receiving all of your heartfelt and thought provoking messages. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you, CJ. Would you like to invite Dr. Latasha Holden for her first speech?
Dr. Holden, it is my honor to welcome you to this platform and to hear your amazing voice, because if you guys do not know Dr. Holden, she went from homeless to PhD to being mother of Georgia. I say mother of Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, because she is holding it down for all mothers in Atlanta, Georgia, and across the globe. And she is teaching everybody how to change your mindset. Dr. Holden, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning. Good morning. It's an honor to be here. Um, when we was talking about humanity, I just remembered when my 6 children and I were homeless for 4 years in the streets of Atlanta. And for me, humanity crosses over racial, social, economic zip codes and different barriers. But I just remember that when we were homeless for 4 years, with 6 kids, all I could think about, and I know for many parents around the world that are living in under-resourced communities, living in poverty and homelessness, and just struggling day to day to really try to um, be there for their families. I'm big on a strong family unit. I do believe that the stronger and healthier the families are, the stronger and healthier the communities are. But for me, um, and I personally tie my story into what I'm saying, because I think sometimes it makes it more relatable when someone has actually walked in the shoes of the people that they're fighting for, standing for, even advocating for. So for me, overcoming the darkness of homelessness and trying to figure out how can I keep 6 children from poverty, the school to prison pipeline, gangs and drugs. It was definitely a feat that I had to endure. It was a long, lonely journey. But for me, humanity is when we can feel each other, no matter what race you are, where you're from, your social economic background, pain and loneliness and heartbreak and despair can be felt with every bloodline. So for me, my job was to save my 6 children from those elements when we was in that vulnerable situation. And so I stand as a community advocate because I definitely believe that when God delivers, or whoever your spiritual being is, for me it's God, when God delivered me out of a life of homelessness and poverty, despair, riddled with despair and hopelessness, I just believe that God gave me a mandate to go back and fight for others. We're all the same. I do believe that during the last year and this year, COVID has awoken a lot of people out of their sleep where we're no longer existing. I believe that we're now awoken to what is really possible and what is really dear to us now, where we have once been commercialized and thought everything was about money and fame. I think now, hopefully, I do believe, talk with many people around the world, family, love, and kindness, as Dr. Moby said, having compassion for others, as we've seen when mothers have lost their children to um, death and violence due to racial racism, that the communities come together in outrage to show that we stand together and enough is enough. So I'm just glad to be here as Georgia and National Mother of the Year for 2020, to lend my heart, my voice, and to stand with the people on this platforms and those that are watching around the world. Thank you.
Dr. Barnwell isn't here. Would we like to welcome Vince Belito?
And Georgia, so it's a real delight to know that I have another mother right around the corner from me. So thank you, everyone, for your presence. Thank you for your commitment and your love to humanity. I think I should just introduce myself about how I got into this work. My dedication to humanity is empowerment and life expansion for all people worldwide. And that began really in 1999 when I nearly died from a drug overdose. After living a life of crime, I was dealing drugs. I was using drugs heavily. And that was a pivotal turning point for me. I began to reflect on my life, how I got to where I got, what could I do to transform my life, what was the meaning of life, and what was the real purpose of being here. And I found some answers that were quite astonishing. I discovered that there was this interconnectedness between me and all human beings. It was a profound awakening. It changed my life forever. And I began to do some deep healing work. I began to look within and get answers to those questions. How did I get to be this person that I was? And soon enough, I began to remember the traumatic experiences that I had growing up. As a child, I was 10 years old, witnessing my mother getting severely abused. Her nose was broken, smashed flat on her face. She was bleeding and just bloody all over the floor. And I'm sitting there trying to help her up, and I'm just shocked and terrified and not knowing what to do. And in that moment, I made some very powerful decisions about myself, about people, about the world. And I didn't quite understand it, but in my effort to compensate for that extreme sense of inadequacy, the fear, the hurt that I was feeling, I got involved with gangs. I was getting bullied in school, and I was looking for a way out. And this began a really dark journey for me into violence and crime, as I said. And looking back on all of that with this introspective, like compassionate lens into my own soul, I began to understand how I made certain decisions, why I made certain decisions. And so I became fascinated with the inner workings of the human mind and the emotions and who we really are beyond that as a spiritual being, which I did encounter and discover within myself, which also gave me a realization of what every human being is all over the world. It was also an opportunity for me to realize that regardless of what my stepfather did to my mother or my mother, had going on in her life, that they too were as innocent and pure at their core, in spite of what I've seen. And that really empowered me to want to go out and serve humanity, to understand why other people were not aware of this beautiful essence of who we truly are. What caused us to lose this? And so I'm on a mission to make people aware of that. And I have the Inner Coaching Academy, which is my methodology and my training program to help other leaders learn how to help human beings see for themselves what controls their perception, which is the root of all of our behavior. We never behave apart from our perception. We always behave according to how we perceive any given situation, whether it's ourselves, another human being, the world, a particular event. That's what controls our behavior. But most of us do not realize how unconscious so much of our perceptive faculties really are. And through inner coaching, I give human beings the opportunity to experience an awareness of those mechanics in the mind, in the emotions, and the feelings and sensations of the body, and the various impulsive efforts that are operating behind the scenes, and an ability to transform that, to go beyond that. And most of all, people get the opportunity for self-realization, to realize who they are beyond the limits of the mind, beyond the limits of the body. So I love that all of you here are dedicated to serving people. I think it's important to make sure that all of humanity's basic needs are met. Of course, we need food and shelter and water and healthcare and all of those things. But, the newhumanitarian.org said that conflict is, 80% of the problems of humanitarian issues is related to conflict. And that conflict, unless the root causes are dealt with, just continues to perpetuate. And so we've been addressing the superficial issues, the symptomatic issues, but unless we deal with the human heart and the human mind, the source of the conflict, the perceptions that human beings have that are causing so much pain and suffering, and the reason why we attack one another, why we isolate, why we might commit suicide or want to harm other human beings, then we're really just going to continue to be cutting off the tops of the weeds, but the weeds will keep growing back. So that's my mission. That's why I'm here. I'm grateful to be here with all of you. Looking forward to our further conversation here in this platform. Thank you, Vicki, as well, for the invitation. It's a blessing.
At the beginning of the middle of the year, I got to know Vince, and Vince is doing a great job, and I would like to hear more from Vince at the panel discussion. I'd like to welcome Miss Gabby Garland. Are you here, Miss Garland?
I am. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yes, would you like to start your speech, Gabriel?
Absolutely. So I want to introduce myself really quickly. My name is Gabby Garland. I am from a little tiny town, and I now live in the East Coast. About a year ago, I started a podcast called the Resilient Heart Podcast. It was done unknowingly that it would end up being something that would help me heal and would help women and men heal from their stories. And the premise behind my podcast was to allow people a space to connect and share the messy parts of your story, because I feel like there's so much shame around the things that we've been through. And I love the two previous speakers speaking on the things that have happened to them, getting into trouble and being homeless. I myself have been evicted. I was in a domestic violence relationship, and my daughter is a product of that. And learning how to write those pieces of my life and to not put those pieces onto my children has been probably the hardest work I've ever done, but it's also been what I've dedicated myself to within my coaching agency, the Resilient Heart Agency. I feel like there's so much in social media. It's such a beautiful platform, such a powerful platform to be able to connect people. But I feel like people don't do it right way too often. And so when I became an authenticity coach, my goal was to teach men and women how to, number one, heal, and two, show up in a way that is wholeheartedly who you are so that you can connect with the people that you're meant to. CJ is somebody that I met in a group probably about a year, maybe a little bit longer ago. And one of those connections that turns into a beautiful friendship. And I feel like when you think about the struggles that people go through and the successes that people are looking for, those genuine, authentic connections are those bridge between where you're at and where you want to be. But it can't be spammy. It can't be inauthentic. It can't be presented in a way that doesn't just feel good. People want to be connected. We are hardwired to believe and to want to get to know others and to be loved and to feel like we belong somewhere. But like they've said in the two other speakers talking about the healing pieces that come from, we don't look and show up in the world in the way that we're meant to when we have healing to do, because we're triggered. We're taking things that we've been through, things that we've seen, things that have just imprinted on us in our lives. And when we can take a time to really look at ourselves, heal, look at those triggers, dig into those pieces, and allow ourselves the space, the safe space to connect with people that want to serve and help us. I feel like that for me, especially from a young age, like I look at my daughter, she is, like I said, the product of a domestic violence relationship. Her father was a drug dealer. He was killed when I was 25, and she's now a police officer in my home state. And so getting to see seeing me heal and seeing what my clients do in healing is, I think, the most essential piece to humanity, because humanity is the healed version of us, the one that is allowing ourselves to show up exactly how we're meant to. And when we don't do that healing, we don't get the world to see the gifts that we have, the way that we're meant to be, and the person that we are. And so that's where my work lies. I love getting to share the stories on the Resilient Heart podcast. One of the things that was very interesting, and I think it's just a testament to giving people a safe space, is getting messages from the families of the guests and saying this was the first time that they have had a weekend with them where they weren't crying about the things that they had been through, that they had a space, they got to talk about it, they got to release it, and they got to just get that piece off of their chest. And giving others a safe space to be able to heal and to grow, I just think is so essential for humanity. So
you are so passionate in your work, Ms. Garland. Love to hear from you even after the event. And let's welcome Mary. She's there. Hi, Mary. Welcome to Singapore.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here amongst you all. Thank you, Vicki, for the invitation. My name is Mary Kane. I am the founder of Global Radiance, which was founded on the belief that we exist to be a light in this world. As many of you know, we live in a dark and decaying world. I am a woman of faith, and I do believe that the light that we have within us is able to distinguish the darkness that exists inside of this world. I remember as a young girl, my mom sharing with me the story of the Starfish. For those of you who don't know the story, it's about an older man who's walking along the seashore and he sees a young child. And this young child is picking up a starfish because a storm had just came. And so there are thousands and thousands of starfish on this beach. And so as the man is walking, he sees this young boy who's picking up the starfish, and he stops and says, Listen, don't you see these thousands of starfish on the shore? How do you think it's possible that you can make a difference? You're one person and you're doing it alone. Well, the little boy picks up the starfish. He looks at the man, he throws it in the water, and he says, well, didn't I make a difference to that one? So when I think about humanity, I think about the starfish story. I think about the millions of people that are in this world that exist, and they need the help of one person. But humanity is not just one person. It's all of us. It's all of us coming together to alleviate the sufferings and to help the needs, clothing those who need clothes, feeding the hungry, giving those who need drink, something to drink, providing shelter for those who need a place to live across the world globally. I love what Dr. Moby said, that when we can do something right here in our community, we'll be able to do it collectively in our community, but have the mindset of what's happening around the world as well. I'm so grateful because one of my favorite scriptures is Philippians 2:3. And it says to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility that we should value others above ourselves and not look to our own interest, but to the interest of others. That's what it is when we exist in humanity. That's what it is. We become the Mother Teresa's, the Mahatma Gandhis. We become those who are able to alleviate the pressures and alleviate the sufferings that exist inside of our world. I'm also grateful because it helps us to become a better people ourselves. So I hope that I'm able to share more with you. Thank you, Vicki, for allowing me to come and be a part of this event.
Yeah, wonderful work, and you have a lot of work doing for promoting faith. Also, let's have not the final speaker. Let's have Karen. Karen Alston. Miss Karen, are you there, Karen? And also, while we wait for Karen, CJ, is there something you would like to add as the chairwoman of this session?
Yes, just a few words. I am astonished and amazed at all the wonderful words that we are receiving from so many amazing people today. When I listen to the words, I am in awe because so many people have taken their mess and turned it to their message. And when I say mess, it's not in a derogatory nature. What it is the things that were meant to take you down have lifted you up. They have taken you to a height that you were always meant to be. You just needed to find your way there. And I want to commend you for knowing that you could get there, for not giving up on yourself, and for taking all of the things that you learned along your journey and you're giving back. You are servants leaders, and I am blessed to be in your presence, and I am just honored to be here. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you so much, CJ. Let's have our next speaker, Miss. Wow, let's look at her. She is all wow. And Miss Karen Alston, Singapore welcomes you.
Thank you so much, Vicki. And again, I am Karen Denise Austin. I am the founder of For the Jewel in You Global Inc. here in Savannah, Georgia. I am also the spokesperson for Voice to Voice, the Survivor's Heart. And out of that became the I Shall Speak for Her movement. Yes, it is awesome to have this opportunity to be here this morning. And again, we also want to thank not only you, Vicki, but also Bernice with Lowe Creative Services for this opportunity. As a national certified domestic violence advocate, when I think about humanity and world peace, it is important not only for victims and survivors, but also for the nation to really look within ourselves. We need to find our own inner peace before we're able to even help others along the way. As a victim of domestic violence, there were many years of suffering and not knowing who I was and who I really belonged to. I actually had lost myself because of the violence that came in my life. And it was long nights of being raped and brutally beaten by individuals who I thought that really loved me. And it took a whole lot out of me. And so when we think about humanitarian and how we help each other, it is important for us to really understand what goes on behind the closed doors of domestic violence. And domestic violence and sexual assault, it is global. It happens all over. Every person's story is different, but however, it is still the same. So we're still connected in that part. And with For the Jewel in You, it is our goal and our mission to provide the resources to our community so that they understand what really happens behind the closed doors, so that when individuals come forth and they want to seek help, that we do not ridicule them, that we do not judge them, but that we have compassion and we show empathy for them in order to allow them to freely speak and get set free, healed, and delivered from this demonic spirit that I know as domestic violence and sexual assault. Because really, it's a heart issue. We cannot help others because out of the heart, the issues of our life does flow. And so hurt people. So it is very important that we understand that we stand up and we speak for our sisters and our brothers when they cannot speak for themselves. I really wish that when the officers knocked on the door one night when I was being beaten and battered, that I was able to go with them. But because of the fear that I had within me, I had no self-esteem. I didn't know who I really was anymore. But when the law enforcement came to the door to rescue me, I could not leave with them. And so it is so important that we as a nation, we as individuals, we as a group, we as our churches understand what really happens when we are broken into pieces and we're reaching for someone to say, help us out of this place. But what I found out, blessed be to God, was that even in my darkness, there was a light that was shining. Even though I was in a dark place, God showed up in that light and let me know that he was right there to cover me and to carry me and to take me out of this. And so that's why I come forth and I say no more to domestic violence or sexual assault. I let my voice reign so that we can break the silence and really understand how to help individuals get out of the pit that they're in. It is so equally important for us to understand that when I can't speak for myself, or when my sister or my brother cannot come out and say, I need help, I will speak for her because it's without judgment and without ridicule. When she just needs someone to pray for her, I will whisper that prayer, and then when she gets to that point where she says, I just want to be free, I'm sick and tired of being tired, that I will be there, that we should be there to reach our hands out and help that person come forth to the light and really redo themselves. I can remember the night that I was pistol whipped, and I was stuck behind the nightstand and the walls, and I couldn't get away. But he beat me and he called me everything but a child of God. And this particular night, no one called the police. No one wanted to get involved. No one wanted to say this had to be stopped because we figured that what happens behind the closed doors, it has to stay behind the closed door. And for me, I rise up and I shall speak for her and I says, no more shall you have to be battered and abused. No more shall you have to be ashamed of the stigma that the world puts on us because we've been through this thing. So we rise up above the residue of domestic violence. We come out not smelling like smoke because there is beauty for our ashes, and we say no more to domestic violence or sexual assault. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. I would love to interject now and give every speaker a big round of applause. Everyone. Thank you for sharing. Oh my God. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. In this part of the world, a lot of abuse, physical or mental, emotional, is swept under the carpet because you are told to just shut up and just endure. Thank you for opening up our eyes, Ms. Karen Alston. Let's have the final speaker before we go quickly into the panel discussion. Let's have Professor Xiumin Ko of the National University of Singapore. She is a 30-year educator, a veteran in the education sector. Professor.
Thank you, Vicky. And thank you, everyone, for this golden opportunity. Being an educator for the past many, many years, I think the natural local influence I can make is actually amongst my students. As I listen to all the story, I'm so inspired because, Dr. Moby says, we got to act locally, but think globally. As I listened to all the past speakers, I really felt so warm that the little thing I do in the university, that where I come into contact with very young minds, they are 18, 19, 20, 21. They sometimes do not know how to show their love because, in Singapore, we are very good with knowledge acquisition, especially on academic. So much so that they lack the time to build this love for one another. So I bring it upon myself, besides educating them in terms of acquiring knowledge. I told them, you need to have information about what is happening to the world, what you can do for your loved ones, starting from your family. If the student sitting next to you, your classmates, show some sign of need for help, like what Karen just said, do something about it. Stand up for humanity. Where did all the education go to? And I teach them, besides the academic acquisition of knowledge, told them to have confidence. I think if you have education, you will have confidence, and you can form small groups locally, literally locally, all right, amongst a group of classmates in the tutorial class, just talking about how they are coping with their work. And out you will come, how they have to struggle, some of them, for day to day, how to pay the school fees to the university, things like how to cope with the physical tiredness as well as the demand on the brain. Sometimes, with COVID, it makes it even worse. People start having fear of not being able to cope with cope with what is changing in the world, cope with this virus that is attacking us. Oh boy, it really pains my heart because, these are young minds and they're going to be the great contributors in no time. I think in this most formative year, I just felt that they are so impressionable. I extend my love to them. I tell them they can call me beyond the lessons, beyond the lectures. I tell them they can talk to me about their fear. And very often I felt that they needed some mental help. It is really the inability to control the inside fear of the unknown, especially now. In Singapore, most of us would be able to cope with perhaps basic, because our government, gave out very good financial help. They just need to have the courage to talk about it, the the love, all right? If they love themselves, like what most of you share, yes. If you love yourself, you stand up for yourself, you will know how to love the people around you, your family. And that's how it goes from ourselves to our family, to our classmates, to the community that we work in. And so much so that, with technology, I felt so comfortable. I participate in forums like this. I join Zoom. And through our church, I want to spread God's peace. If I can show them I can be a channel of God's peace in humanity, I think the people, young minds around me will also do likewise. It really starts from a small starfish, and then 2, and then 3, and then more. And that's how it multiplies. I think we are doing exactly right what everybody is talking about over here. And so I just pray that you will continue to inspire me, and I will continue to inspire the students in my class. And thank you for this time of sharing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Professor Cole. I'd like to have a 5-minute breakout, 5-minute panel discussion on, within your communities, because we all come from different places, different localities. Is there something that is lacking that you think that the government could not do, that you think in your context, more people should come together to promote your cause? Could you make a shout out, anyone?
Yes, this is Karen. One of the things that is so necessary is for groups to come together, organizations to come together and really sit around the table and become more transparent about what is actually needed in the community. For instance, as a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault, these individuals should sit at the table so that our leaders, our legislator actually know what it is that we need, what was happening to us when no one else wanted to hear our voice. And now we need to be able to speak so that the necessary and the right resources, because a lot of victims are not going to go inside the safe shelter, but what other resources are available to them? And for us to remember that when individuals come, it is about what that individual person needs. So I say this in short, that organizations sitting around the table with our legislators and our mayors to really understand what it is that the survivors absolutely need in order to help others.
Yes. What about Gabby?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I feel like is so important, and it touches on what she shared as well, is really looking at not only from a domestic violence standpoint, but looking at what children in middle schools, high schools, and beyond are learning. Because when I think about my own domestic violence story, there were so many things that I should have caught at my age. I was only 18 when I met him, but if we can get into the schools and teach these little girls and these little boys what this looks like, what these markers are, what the things that they need to be aware of, and all of those pieces, we're going to be able to allow people the resources to understand how not to get engaged in these type of relationships, for one. And for two, we're going to build women's confidence so that they know their value isn't based upon a man, and we are not going to put ourselves in a place of being a victim of somebody telling you about yourself, because you already know exactly who you are. And I feel like we start in middle schools and high school. That is an essential piece, because that's where we started. That's where, if they're seeing it at home, if they're seeing it within their friends and their other family members,
Okay, Miss
sorry.
Garland, I think we're losing you here. Can anyone hear me? Everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I think Gabriel and also Karen has spoken about violence, domestic violence, and I'd like to bring that to the context of Singapore. And this has happened. I think it's not unexpected, but I think when it happens, it's quite shocking, because in the pandemic, in prolonged lockdown, you see cases of people becoming more violent, husbands and wives, and children against their parents, and also brothers and sisters beating up each other. There was a case And I'm not ashamed to say that because I think it happens everywhere. Is in the news. I mean, a brother or family beating up a 19-year-old sister and she died. I don't know what happened because the news doesn't say, but I think behind the headlines, the story goes on. And people like us, when we read the news, we only read that 100 words or even 50 words. And that is the meaning of life. Is like you are just being reduced in 50 words. And if ever the headlines carry you at all. So I think it's a time whereby a lot of like what Karen has said, we bring to ourselves like, okay, maybe I'm the one who made the mistake. I checked myself too much. I shouldn't have spoken. I should have done this. I should have angered my brother. I should have done this. I mean, there's a lot of self-guilt even when you are the victim. So I think you brought a lot of light, especially in as we emerge out of 2020 and 2021. What will the world become? And that's the question. Any final takers for the question, where should we go from here? Vince?
Yeah, I think Gabby was speaking to the school system and how important it could be for us to educate our kids. I was going into sixth grade. I was 11 years old, and it was the summer before that my stepfather, came into my world, was abusing my mother. I had so much shame, so much pain, so much fear, and I was so alone and so internally holding so much of this that if there were groups, if there was one class dedicated to providing opportunities to share deeply, emotionally, what was going on, and just for people to be able to share authentically, I would have been able to communicate what I had to hold on to that I didn't even know how to speak. I think it's essential for young children to have this opportunity to explore their inner world, to share their emotions, to share what's going on at home, to share what they're stuck on, what's hurting them, and to be heard, to be validated, to be fully acknowledged, not corrected, not told how to think or what to do, but really given a permission to just communicate and self-express and to be guided in that. It would make a huge difference if that was part of our curriculum. I think so much pain and suffering in the world would end if our education system included that as a prerequisite for every year of school, really. I mean, forget it. Every year of school should have at least one class dedicated to human relations and interpersonal experience.
Yeah. As we close for the final couple of speakers to close, can we have Lillian? Lillian, we haven't heard from you, and I will invite you to join the session B later on. Lillian?
Yeah, I'm here. One of the things I did want to suggest, and it's a very sensitive issue, is that a lot of the religions of the world have women and children as property of the man, and that the man is allowed to do what he thinks fit because he is the chosen figure who is in control of the family. So while you're introducing the curriculum into the school, you need to try and change the behavior and the culture of the different religions that have been followed faithfully generation by generation. And until that is also addressed, all the education in the world is not going to break the dominion of the hold that religion has over many people all over the world.
Yeah, and
many
Lillian, with that,
based on that premise.
Yeah, Lillian, based on what you have said, I would like to hear more from you. If you could be kind to extend yourself to session B as we break out into session B. I'd like CJ to wrap up this session. CJ, as the chairwoman of the session.
As we come to the end of session A, I want to thank everybody for being here and providing the amazing words that you had on humanity. We have such a diverse world, and Lillian said it wonderfully. We have many religions, we have many cultures, and we have to respect all of them. We have to find a way to communally come together and understand each other so that we can all live peacefully in this world, and we no longer put a proverbially a proverbial thumb on anybody. While each religion, each diverse culture has their own way of doing everything, we as humanity can find a way to come together and respect each other, respect the fact that we all have a voice, and that we can all find a way to live harmoniously and collectively find peace. Thank each and every one of you for being here for this session. I know there will be another session that will continue,
Yes.
and I am so blessed that each of you are here for this morning session. Stick around for session B. There is another group of phenomenal speakers that will be here, and a few that will be continuing on to session B. Thank you so much. I am blessed and honored to have been here.
Thank you, and that's right. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. And I'd like to invite you to stay on to session B as viewers in Facebook, and you can comment. And definitely, we will have tomorrow also Heroes of Our Times Veterans exclusive at the same time tomorrow. And that's a shout out to tomorrow's event. I'd like to say goodbye to everyone. But for those of you, Lillian, please come back again for session 2 where you're supposed to be on, and the rest of you please stay on back as audience and comment below, and then you can always come back tomorrow. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's never enough. Thank you. And
Thank you,
right
Vicky.
now we will have a breakout session for session 2, and while we do that, we will continue with session 2, and some of us who are in session 2, I'd like to make a shout out to the guest who's going to come on. The first speaker is I'm so honored to have him, is Mr. Subarno Isaac Bari. I'm not sure if he's back here already. We'll have about 5 minutes for everyone to take a break right now. This is a commercial call right now. So as everyone fall behind stage, this is what I'm going to do. While we are still live, I'm just going to make a shout out to the following speakers. The first speaker being Mr. Subarno Isaac Bari, and he's going to come on very, very quickly. The first speaker. And then we also have Miss Elizabeth Johnson, and we also have Colette Galea and Tia Acker-Moore. And then we have Lillian Cadwell. She's going to join us again. And we also have Richard Lowe, formerly from UK and now Singapore resident. He's got lots of stories. We'd love to hear from Richard. And we also have Mr. Ben Ibrahim. So if some of the speakers are late, it is expected, because just want to tell everyone, it is the 27th of November, 2021, now at 11:06 p.m. in Singapore. We are almost midnight here, 11:06 p.m. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everyone to be joining us on this particular evening from Singapore, Malaysia, India, and various parts of America. And of course, we've got 3 speakers. We've got myself, and also Richard and Professor Sumin Ko from National University of Singapore, who is here. And here we are live, everyone. Now let's give ourselves a round of applause for entering in the era of the metaverse, everyone. Once again, I'm so excited to have all of us on. It was such a huge, eye-opening experience in the last 60 minutes or so. We hope that it can go on, but this is just the mark of a new era, the metaverse, where people can come in together, connect, converse, to form a new kind of community in the 4th industrialization, which I'm so excited about. That's a lot of power in our hands, ladies and gentlemen, with the technology. And I'd also like to welcome our youngest speaker who made it here. Isaac, thank you for being here. Let's give him a round of applause. Great. And that's Isaac. All right. Now, before we even start, I'd like to review very quickly the speakers that we had. Wonderful speakers from Karen, Alston, and Mary Kane. And we had also some of the wonderful speakers. But now we're going to focus on you, ladies and gentlemen. And I also want to announce that we are already live on Twitterverse and also on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And we are being shared amongst a lot of groups. So it's going to be there for perpetuity. And once again, welcome to Singapore from all over the world. We'd like to dive into the sponsors. Miss Dr. Moby, and we've got Dr. Moby as the frontline doctor. And this is a very important event because it is the International Humanities Summit, Heroes of Our Time, to celebrate the heroes that has been on the forefront leading the fight of COVID-19. And Dr. Moby is one of the doctors who is still at the front line. I'd like to thank him. And Dr. Moby, would you like to take the floor right now and say a couple of words as the sponsor and the keynote speaker? Dr. Moby. And while we're waiting for Dr. Moby, I'd like to bring Dr. Moby. Are you here?
Yes.
Dr. Moby. The floor is yours right now as the keynote speaker and the sponsor.
Hello, welcome everyone, citizen of the world, honorable speakers, as well as my fellows. And I would like to first thank you, Vicky, again for hosting this wonderful event, as well as CJ, she left, and wonderful speaker, which we heard. And in this session, we're going to hear more speakers. And once again, I would like to emphasize few things. We are all born as humans with primitive needs, but remember, the humanity is when we think about others, when we think about our neighbors, when we think about people in our town or across the globe, and when we think that if they had enough medications, food, and the basic necessity. I think, in my opinion, is we are here to serve, basically save the human race and help each other. And we cannot do that if we just think just about ourselves. So this planet Earth needs us. And also humans are the only one which can build this Earth. We are the only species which can really save mankind. So, ladies and gentlemen, do your best. Do act locally. Do small deeds. All of these count. Remember, even a small thing, just checking on your neighbor or helping someone, even spreading our good message across the globe helps. So, just don't think that doing a small thing will not help. Mankind needs really a lot of work. We are 7.9 billion people on this planet, and we really need to help each other. So I leave with this final thought: to save our future generation, we really need to gear up. So spread the love, respect each other, and let's start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moby. I think Dr. Moby has summed up. Let us all gear up and do better jobs, as we're given a new lease of life as we emerge from 2021, the pandemic. And let's have the first speaker, and he's going to be a very important person. And I think I particularly invited the youngest professor on the planet Earth, Professor Subarno Isaac Bari. He's got over 20 million views. And I really consumed all his videos within a weekend. I said, I've got to get him. And I really pursued him to be on this panel because we're going to talk about the future where he grows up. And we're not talking about air right now. We're talking about future, the legacy that we're going to leave for the next generation. And I think Isaac is going to be the voice of this generation. I'd like to hear from Isaac his vision for the world as he grows up. And he talks a lot about that in this video, about respect for different faith and acceptance and discrimination and racism. And that's what touched me, Isaac. And that was what we spoke about in our very short interview some months ago. But before that, I'd like to have a shout out, make a shout out to Bernice Lohman. She is the tech sponsor. It is possible because of her, and that's Lohman Creative Services, all the way from Savannah, Georgia, United States of America. Let's give her a round of applause behind the scene. At the same time, let's welcome Professor Subarno Isaac Bari. Isaac, please don't go into mathematics or chemistry or physics because I failed all that. You're going to put me to shame. So please tell us about your vision, your hopes for yourself and your hopes for your fellow generation. I think we want to hear from your generation what the world should be like as you grow up. I think that's our responsibility to someone like you. Isaac, take it away, Isaac.
I was first so inspired by what Dr. Moby said. Oh, geez, sorry. I was so honestly inspired by what Dr. Moby said about how we need to band together because the whole world is at danger right now, even today. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, there was something called the Cold War. And our weapons of war, our toys of war, as they were called, they were so strong that they could wipe out entire civilizations with just a few nuclear bombs. And now that fear is looming over us more than ever, along with our other crises like climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a critical situation for all of mankind because we are all fighting and squabbling over each other because of arbitrary boundaries like religion or, for example, race and things like that. We are fighting over each other because of artificial boundaries that we ourselves have created. And I think, and my philosophy is that once we all recognize each other as humans, not Muslims, Bangladeshis, Singaporeans, that may be true, but that doesn't matter. That shouldn't affect how we geopolitically or politically think of the world as a whole. We should be thinking of each other as humans, not Bangladeshis or Muslims or Singaporeans or Black or Asian or Hispanic. We should not be limiting ourselves because of those arbitrary boundaries. We should be uniting ourselves. We shouldn't be talking about how this person is bad because they are of this race or because their nation has committed this crime or this or that. Just because something has happened doesn't mean you have to disrespect an entire nation, an entire race. So we are all disrespecting each other and killing each other because of our race, our nationality, and our religion. And so this will keep continuing. And I don't want to leave this mess of a world to our future generations. And probably neither do you. We have so many thousands of people dying in the world of poverty, of hunger, of terrorism, of war. And yet we are doing nothing about it to stop or break up the crisis. We need to help our own planet, our own nation. Because if we just focus on side conflicts and domestic conflicts and racial conflicts, then we are not going to get anywhere from uniting together and trying to help the whole world cope with all of the disease and all of the crises and all of the scientific, all of climate change. We have to cope with so many different crises and so many different problems. And if we keep focusing on this and that, then we are never going to get anywhere with that.
live viewers everywhere, and it is really rare to have like 200 viewers, and people are coming up and they're commenting on Isaac's speech, and also through Dr. Mobi's television, and Mary is there. Wow. Just to let everyone know, Isaac received a letter from President Barack Obama himself, congratulating him as the youngest professor. And Isaac, I just want to tell you that I love my maths, but I love to work with you again, but no more chemistry because I can't even string the alphabets. Let's have a professor, the next professor. You've got two professors there. Let's have Professor Koh from National University of Singapore. Would you like to say a few words to someone like Isaac, your colleague from another place in the same planet?
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. After listening to Professor Isaac, I really can only say I'm an associate and assistant professor. I was just, speechless. I wish the daily students that I interact with speak with such conviction, such love, generosity, when they are in class with me. But unfortunately, because most of my students are really quite preoccupied with excelling in only one aspect of their life, which is to do well in the studies, get a good job, earn a lot of money, and they only have one KPI, which is who becomes the richest is the most successful. I wish I can bring you, Professor Isaac, to my university so that they can listen to you firsthand and you'll be so impressed. So the view that I have of students that I meet, they perhaps lack confidence. They don't have enough love for themselves. And whenever they receive instructions, like how to cope with their study online, the COVID virus evolving and mutating, they become very gripped by fear, a lot of mental disequilibrium, and they don't know where to turn to. They don't know how to love. And sometimes when I go to them or offer them my contact number and they come to talk to you one by one, I realize they are just so human. But on the facade, they think they are not good enough. Yeah. So, I just want to perpetuate this belief that I am a channel of God's peace and I want to act really locally, galvanize a lot of like-mindedness people like all of you here in the local context. And in this day and age whereby technology is so prevalent, it's such a shame not to make use of it. We can start small. It's just like the virus that has gone so exponential in terms of growth. I think if we can do this globally, locally, and multiply it globally, I think we are moving nearer and nearer towards the objective,
Yes.
the common objective of everybody in this room, Yeah, and I want to shout out to Professor Isaac. You make me feel, I should change my title, all right? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Koh, and thank you, Isaac. I think Professor Koh has actually encapsulated the spirit. Let this conversation be replicated. The model that what we do. That's my objective also, to show that we can converse and we have a common language, and that language is humanity. And it's always about putting food on the table to make it easy. To putting food on the table, paying your bills, making sure your children grow up to be good contributing citizens of the world. Thank you, Isaac. And I think Isaac has actually framed the argument that we are actually trying to leave a legacy behind the world for him. Stay on for the panel discussion, everyone. Let's have Elizabeth Johnson. Elizabeth Johnson, and then we have Colette. Elizabeth, hi, how are you? Welcome to Singapore.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Vicky. I would like to thank CJ for also inviting me to this wonderful platform internationally, and thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Johnson. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I now live in Palm Bay, Florida. I am the marketing director for Playtime Multimedia and Publishing Company based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Finding myself jobless and wondering about supporting my family because of the pandemic, I was forced to recreate myself and lean on the gifts that were placed within me. My love for children and education combined itself to co-author the book, Just Like My Dad, with already established author Tyrell Player. With the advancements of Just Like My Dad, the Spanish version of the book, and the workbook, increasing literacy through Playtime Multimedia and Publishing, will make a difference for my family, my community, and the world we live in. People will learn to reach out for help, accept the help from elders, and learn to work together to accomplish goals and make the world a better place to live in. Change starts in the heart and expands outward. We must communicate, inform, and change in the community. We must reach that person that is lost and bring them back into the fold of our society. We must let the children know that they serve a purpose and they are special to us. Differences will exist, but differences does not have to mean hate. If we communicate those differences in a positive manner, we will become more informed society and we can make the world a better place. The point of this summit should not be to create a one-time event, but rather to start the dialogue to creating a global change. Just Like My Dad is a starting point for kids and parents, but the lesson is that we as an adults can make the positive change through effective communication and save lives in the process. It takes a minute to encourage someone. And if someone did it, and if everyone in the world did it, this world would be a better place to live. Don't allow this to be a performance, but a platform that we can use to move forward. Everyone has the potential to bring a positive change to the world, and that time is now. So I would like to thank Vicki, I would like to thank CJ and Dr. Moby for this time. Let's spread the world and make this world a better place. God bless.
That's a wonderful, wonderful, uplifting speech. Let's give her and everyone a round of applause again. Thank you, Elizabeth. Wow. Oh, that's an award-winning speech right there. And there's so much truth. I think let this be a platform to continue. And let's have Colette. Colette, are you here?
I am.
Oh, yes, Colette. How are you since the last time we met? And welcome to Singapore, Colette. Tell us your message today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Colette Gallagher, and I'm over here in San Diego, California in the USA. So I'm so excited to be here with the rest of the world talking about this really important topic of the humanitarian crisis and what we as an individual in our own homes and our own neighborhoods can do to help each other, and then spread that to the community and the world. So for me, I am a yoga teacher, women's group facilitator, and a transformational coach. I co-founded the Inner Coaching Academy with my partner Vince, who was here earlier speaking. So here in San Diego, the biggest crisis, humanitarian crisis, are homelessness, ocean pollution, dirty water, and addiction. And so for me, what's really important is giving people tools and resources. So I grew up in a home. My mom was married 4 times, lots of abuse. We've had a lot of victims of domestic violence, and I was a child in those homes. And so growing up, it was watching my mom get abused and abuse drugs. And I always wondered, why? Why do people choose this? And then it's a cycle, right? Because as we've talked about before, people don't really know the red flags, or they just feel so bad about themselves in the first place that they think they deserve it, or they think it's normal to be in these situations. And then it's people need to get that sense of power from somewhere, or they have defense mechanisms where they try to mask those things through addictions. And so getting to the heart of that and the root of that, the pain, that then the symptoms are the addiction. The symptoms are dirty messes and pollution and throwing trash or wars. That's one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the world is war. It's like it all stems from the pain that's caused in the homes that people grow up in. And so having these open discussions like this, where we can come together and talk about solutions, getting into schools, people mentioned before, and just checking on your neighbors or even at work, letting people open up and giving them tools, because it's like 1 in 3 women, I think, are abused sexually or physically. And so it's just so rampant. We need to start at home with our neighbors. And so really excited to be here today. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Colette. And she's got a wonderful story, and please check out my interview with her in my podcast, Talk About Life, where she talked about her childhood. And that's amazing, amazing story, which will touch a lot of people. And without further ado, let's have Miss Tia Ackermore. Hi, how are you? Welcome to Singapore.
Hi, how are
Message
you?
for the world.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Bernice Lohman also for the extended invitation. I am Tia Ackermore. I'm the CEO of the Resilient Magazine. I know we have a lot of resilient individuals here and globally. And prior to opening the magazine, or starting the magazine rather, I did not venture into the land of entrepreneurship. I actually have a background in healthcare. And so this platform was very near and dear to me, in that with that background in healthcare, I also had a background in DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so being in the aspect of humanitarianism, I thought it was befitting that we talk about access. And hearing Professor Isaac speak so eloquently for his age, it was very overwhelming, because I know that he has access, and I want the access that he has to be spread upon globally. There are certain countries that do not have access to the very basic things that we need for survival. So with my platform, all three, the healthcare background, the Resilient Magazine, as well as the DEI standpoint and framework, I intend to globally impact through humanity those who need access. Having access and having support to getting those things that we do not have access to is very essential. For example, we take for granted meaningless things. And when I say meaningless things, what may seem of as no consequence to one may be a big deal to others. We just celebrated Thanksgiving here in the United States, and I'm sure globally. But today and tomorrow, someone may feel like, I don't want leftovers, where you may have a third world country where Thanksgiving is essentially obsolete. Just having a meal, a prepared meal, is a fortune. So I intend to use what I know and what I have experienced as far as bringing humanity to the entire globe through access. I want individuals to have access, fair access, equitable access. I want individuals to be included despite their socioeconomic status, despite their race, barriers, countries, any of those things. I want people to have the choice to decide if they would like to be in the know or not in the know. I want everyone to have a level playing field. And that's what we talk about when we focus on equity. And equity says that individuals have the same level playing field. They have the same head starts and everything. And what I expound on in the Resilient Magazine monthly is that women who would normally not be recognized for what they are contributing to the world, I highlight that. And they don't have to be celebrities. They don't have to be the people who you're going to constantly read about regardless. But these are women who are in their homes, who are making things happen every day from the seat of their chairs, from their brain capacity, and they're providing that knowledge and that access to everyone abroad. So I thank you for having me on this platform this morning. I'm very interested in being a part of the conversation and seeing what I can do from my seat to help everyone globally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tia. I mean, we must get connected right after this, Tia. Thank you. And without further ado, I also like to invite Dr. Moby. What's your thoughts on what our speakers have spoken, especially with our special speaker, Isaac?
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to see him, meet him, and listen to him. Yes, hi, Vicky and Dr. Wari. It was pleasure meeting you, seeing you, and listening to you all. And especially, I was so impressed by his knowledge and his approach, as well as I pray that he stays on his course and does what we really are looking forward from him to build this humanity, to help us. So it is very important, and I'm sorry I had to come in quickly because I have to go to hospital. With, as you know, with pandemic, our hospitals are overwhelmed, and I had to leave a little earlier than my schedule is. And I
Yes.
apologize for that. But anyways, I would like to first thank you, Vicky, for giving me honor as well as listening everyone. And I've met a few of you in person before, CJ especially. And I remember we talked at length about mental health. And that's another thing I would like to emphasize very much here is that first of all, I really congratulate everybody to putting up a great show and also taking the courage to share their, whether it's a domestic violence or whether it's a mental health issue or it's a problem they face their life, they wanted to share and they turn that to teach others. And that is what all humanity is in nutshell, that we forget our problems and we take care of you. And that's, in my sense, is the summary of humanity. And remember, there is no religion that has no backbone than humanity. So remember that if there are some cultural changes which are happening to all the religions, but that is not the real religion. Real religion is humanity. Believe in it, do it, and not just say it, practice it. Also take care of yourself. We are blessed that we have a great body and we can serve others. That's a blessing and a gratitude. Remember, we are a chosen one to serve. What if we were not alive today? What if I get up and I cannot move my arm or do anything? So we should have gratitude and we should really encourage everybody to join this great cause and help everyone. So with these final words, I really thank you everybody and let's work together. Thank you.
Let's give Dr. Moby a round of applause for being the front liner in the fight against COVID-19. Let's give all these heroes of our time a big round of applause and a salute. Right, Dr. Moby has got his patients to run to. Thank you so much, and we'd like to welcome the next speaker. That is Lillian Cardwell. Lillian, I'm so glad to meet you once again after our live event in February about the prolonged pandemic. I'm so glad to see you healthy and alive, and you're always ready to give words of wisdom to the generation behind you, and that is us. And you're looking at another generation in Isaac. Tell us, Lillian, what's your view about the state of the world now, and where should we go from here, Lillian?
Well, I think that the state of the world is very uneven economically, politically, culture, society, because everybody has their own value system. They all have their different beliefs. If you listen to people closely, they say, well, God told me to do this, or I'm doing God's work. But unfortunately, their work that they're doing for their God may not be in alignment with somebody else's God. Now, I believe there's only one person up there, or being, energy, however you want to view it. And I really also believe that people have the ability to manipulate what they want to hear and what they seem to think they're instructed to do. And then they go out, not realizing that, like a stone sinking in a lake, it has ripples that extends beyond the original stone being thrown into that lake. And that those ripples magnify and grow larger and larger, affecting everything in its path. And I believe that humans are the same way. One action affects the rest of humanity. And that in order for people really to live with each other, they have to understand that there are going to be consequences for any acts that they enact, so that they need to really learn to consider other people around them. And I mean the whole world, because take a look at the state of our oceans. They have all these programs about people bringing in crabs and lobsters and fish. Tuna goes for what, 40, 50, 60,000, $60,000 now? And yet, what happens when all the fish are no longer there? What about the communities who have depended on the sea for generations? Because that is their culture. That is what they've been brought up. That's been a part of their life. How do they readjust to a world in which there's no longer any fish for them to bring into the community to eat? What happens when all the animals in Africa, for example, are caged or they die because of global warming? And we're already experiencing that with the polar bears. They're going extinct because no matter how far they swim, they really can't find an iceberg or an ice pack that they can climb up on and then go eat these seals. So I really think people need to realize that whatever actions they do not only affect themselves, their family, their community, but the whole world. And that it also affects the animals that also share the world with us. And it also affects our atmosphere. I mean, if we're not careful, all the garbage that are the United States and the Russia and all the other people who have gone up to space and have cast off their parts of their rocket ships, it's all circling the Earth as an orbit. Or the 3-mile island of garbage that's out floating around on the ocean. So people have got to realize that there are consequences for whatever they do, because it just doesn't affect them. It affects all of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lillian. And just to let everyone know, Lillian, she is the woman who brought the radio to the internet 20 years ago. And she's the one who championed the voice of the people. And she believed that the news media, which were dominated by CNN, which focuses on headlines and politicians, and she brought radio, internet to focus on the voice of the people. So I want to salute to Lillian. She is the mother or the father of the voice of the people. Let's give Lillian a round of applause to be amongst us. We are so honored. And thank you for that wonderful illuminating speech on the state of the world. I'd like all of you to stay back for the panel, also to hear from Isaac, what he requests our generation to do for his generation. So I'd like everyone to stay on a little bit. And let's have Mr. Richard Christopher Lowe, formerly from UK and now a resident in Singapore. I especially would like to invite him because he's like the epitome of the global citizen. And I've got a show with him about wealth management, and he talks about him backpacking the world 20 years ago, and now he's got children living in Singapore, adopting a third culture with his Japanese wife, living in the heart of Asia in Singapore. And I think he's got a lot of revelations to share with us, Richard. I'm so glad to have you, Richard. Take it away, Richard.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Vicky. Yep. Again, my name's Richard Lowe, originally from Oxford, England, but I've lived in Singapore now for 26 years. What we refer to as the little red dot at the end of mainland Malaysia, not part of China. I have a Chinese name, Lowe, but with a Western face, as you can see. But when Vicky invited me and asked what this was going to be about, well, what does humanity mean to me as what I would like to think as a global citizen? I feel that I was very blessed as a child. I was born into a middle-class family in Oxford. I was surrounded by Oxford academia as a child. My father was a professor of biochemistry at Oxford. My godfather was a professor of physics. My brother's father-in-law was a professor of engineering. So I really had a very lucky and privileged background. And when I look back at it, I really do value the insights and the education that my early years brought to my experience in life. But at a young age, I always loved to travel. And by the age of 20, I'd backpacked around Europe twice. At the age of 23, I set out to backpack around the world and spent a year visiting many, many countries and experiencing many different cultures. And I really felt this was like the university of life. And in many respects, I felt it taught me more about life than my formal education and the degree that I did and the family background that I actually came from. And I think that some of the things that I understood was that although I was very lucky in the background that I was brought up in, I realized that when I spoke and met with people from different backgrounds and cultures, that the way that they are brought up, the values that they have, the way that they see the world can be very different from the way that I saw the world. And if I could embrace and understand the way that others saw the world, then ultimately I can have a greater sort of global perspective of really how the world works, as opposed to just through one pair of lenses and the background that I was brought up in. And it really taught me that the world is becoming more and more connected, and we do live in an interdependent world. As a species, we are very social animals, and from back to our sort of caveman days, we have lived in communities. And why have we done this? Because the phrase "together everyone achieves more," I think rings very true, that in teams we can achieve more. And we see this in society today, where we build business teams to basically achieve business goals, sports teams, charities, many aspects of life bring people together, because we realize that in teams we can typically achieve a lot more than trying to do everything on our own. Now, I'm a strong believer that God created man as equal, irrespective of nationality, ethnic group, race, language, skin color, or sex. One of the things that drew me to Singapore, and I used to live in Hong Kong prior to Singapore, is the fact it is a multicultural society. it really is a melting pot of many different cultures. And that really makes for a much more rich and diverse world. It's often a little bit like a mini United Nations. Many a time I've been to a wedding or a banquet, and there may be 12 people sitting around a table with 12 different nationalities, which makes for great entertaining conversation, much more so than having everybody around me who thinks the same and looks the same. Now, although there are many things that divide us in terms of our cultures, backgrounds, religions, I think that humanity and humans have many fundamental things that unite us. Things like the fundamentals of wanting to be happy and healthy. But perhaps more significantly is, why have we been born? The big questions of life. Why are we here? What significance can I play in this world? Am I just born? I come into this world with nothing. I do a series of events, and then at some stage I die, and that's it, game over. So, what is the pursuit of significance, and what is the purpose of our life? Once we've lived a life, many people want to leave a legacy, whether that be a statue, a building that's named after us. But ultimately, all these things do wither away over time. But if we can leave a legacy, can we leave a legacy whereby we leave a better world than the world that we entered? One of the books that had one of the biggest influences in my 20s and 30s was the very famous book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he has many insights to great universal truths. He's a great believer in creating a mission statement so that we can have a perspective on what really is important. And he has a wonderful, short and sweet mission statement, which is to live, to love, and to leave a legacy. And I think that's a really great mission statement. I have my own mission statement. Maybe it's not quite as profound, but it is to live life to the full and in tune with the values I hold dearest in my heart. And I feel that if I can live to be in tune with those values, that on my deathbed, I can look back on my life and feel that, I led a successful life. But going back to, what is the purpose of life and what is the meaning of life? It's a major question that hopefully most people contemplate at some stage in their lives. And I think there's probably no better book than the very famous The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren, who again touches on great fundamental universal truths in the book. And I would highly recommend it, irrespective of what background, faith, or beliefs that you have. And I was just flicking through some of the pages earlier today before preparing for tonight's session, and a couple of points that really sprung out to me is that he mentions that life on Earth is a temporary assignment, and that the decisions we make while we're on this earth will have an eternal impact. And if we just pause for a moment and reflect on those 2 points, it really will have major impacts on shaping and influencing the little time that we've been given whilst on this earth. Now, there are many noble things that we can do with our time, and I think through the panel discussion later, we may be touching on some of these. So rather than actually pinpoint any specific area, I really wanted to end with a few questions so that we can reflect on ourselves, look at ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves the questions, what can we do to make this world a better place? Because ultimately it starts with us. And each individual has the power, if they have true belief and conviction in a universal truth and value, that can change the world. A couple of questions, whether we want to reflect on this or discuss in the panel discussion later. But, are you going to be a force for good or evil? Very basic question. Are you here to serve your own needs or to serve others' needs? And what have you done that has eternal value that goes beyond just ourselves and transcends time. And to quote arguably one of the most famous and quotable American presidents, just to wrap up, Abraham Lincoln, he says, "Surely God would not have created such a being as man to exist only for a day. No, no, man was made for immortality." So I'd like to leave you with that. And again, thank you, Vicky, for inviting me. And I'm delighted to share more thoughts and ideas during the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. And that was almost a sermon, right? Thank you for framing it up in such a way that it gives us a lot of meaning, and that coming from Richard. And we will have Ben Ibrahim coming onto the show. Ben Ibrahim, you are next, and we have Ben. A little bit about Ben's background. Ben is actually a regional. Are you here, Ben? Yeah, he's a regional.
I am.
Yeah, he is a renowned regional television host, former host of Fox News Sports Asia and also the History Channel. I especially invited him. I got to know him in the height of the pandemic in 2020, whereby we actually had conversations, long conversations online and live in our show. I'd like Ben to tell us about the situation in Malaysia and also as a father. What do you see the state of the world in Malaysia and in the world? And what do you hope the world will be for your children? And you've got two beautiful, beautiful children I see from the pictures. Ben, welcome. And let's give Ben and Christopher and everyone a round of applause for living to this time, almost 2 hours. Let all of us give us a round of applause and pat on the back. Okay, Ben, take it away, Ben.
Yes, good evening, everybody, or good morning from wherever you are around the world. Sorry I'm a little bit late, but I think the conversation here has been fantastic. I've heard not all the speakers, but some of the speakers. A lot of you speak with passion and conviction and a belief that you can make a difference, so I salute you there. I won't take up too much of your time. Very nice of Vicky to give me a nice introduction. I always tell people I'm an overglorified shopping announcer. So it is what it is, but I enjoy what I do because what I do is not so much about announcing, it's about communication and connection and engagement, which I thoroughly enjoy, which is why I'm also using my skills in the education space. But I won't talk too much about myself. I'll just tell you a little bit about what Vicky wants me to talk about. You know, the world is such a different place in the last 2 years, and it's because of Vicky reaching out to me. We didn't know each other, but we were just bonded digitally, I suppose, by a chemistry that we wanted to make each other feel better. Singapore, Malaysia, very, very similar cultures, identical, super multicultural, but also has its challenges as well with that. And I won't talk too much about that because that's something for the politicians to debate every day. But yeah, Vicky reached out to me and we spoke about the pandemic. I reached out to Vicky with no skepticism. I've been depressed twice in my life, and I say that openly and not proudly, but with no reservation because of certain things that happened in my life. So because of those two depression experiences, I managed the pandemic okay, but I still was down. I lost a lot of income. As you know, the TV industry, the events industry took a huge hammering because of the pandemic. So yeah, I reached out to Vicky, just really the simple basic skill of mental health. If you have a problem, talk to someone about it. In our part of the world, Asian culture, we don't like to talk about problems, but maybe Vicky and I are a little bit different that way. Not for the better or for the worse, but we're just different, and we spoke to each other. Vicky was very sympathetic in terms of what I was going through, tried to help me here and there. But basically, she, like the Romans, she lent me her ears, and just really good chat, really good talk, and connected with my family. So to answer Vicky's two questions, the pandemic, it's tough. I'm sure all of you know it's tough. In Malaysia, super hard, 20,000 cases once upon a time. And it was just, numbers were increasing and increasing. I just kept losing work and work and work, digging into savings, really depressed, couldn't sleep at night, waking up late every day at about 10 o'clock, which is really unhealthy because I was sleeping at 5 o'clock. But I couldn't sleep. And a lot of Malaysians were literally committing suicide, mental health was now on the radar. The win that I see for the pandemic is that mental health is on the radar. And in our part of the world, people are a lot more sympathetic. Work from home, it may sound like a blessing, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a huge challenge for especially people who have families. My children, Kyla and Kyle, 4 years old and 8 years old, respectively. My daughter's 8, Kyla. They were depressed. My son was throwing things at my daughter during the pandemic, and I come in and say, "What's going on?" My daughter would say, "She threw things at me, Dada." And then instead of reading out the riot act, I just took him aside and said, I looked at him and thank God I read him carefully. I just said, "Look, are you okay?" He said, "I'm frustrated." A 4-year-old boy telling me I'm frustrated, Dada. I miss school. I miss reading. I miss mathematics. I miss winning things. I miss losing things. Losing in terms of competition. So yeah, it was really tough. Whatever. They're not adults where you can give them a pep talk and a rally and a rah rah, and they'll just be okay. You just have to keep on the positives. A phrase that I borrow from my American friends: "Stay positive." It's the hardest thing to do in the world. I'm not the most positive person in the world. I'm not the most negative person in the world, but I tried my very best. I have a sports background, using sports as to play with the kids, just like some touch rugby, some badminton, some soccer. And when we played in the playground, it was not so much about playing, it was about communicating. Pass me the ball, I'm going to move here, I'm going to move there. And it was just good fun. So the pandemic has been bad, but it's gotten better. There's 5,000 cases in Malaysia now. I know that number seems ridiculously high, but it was a lot better than the 20,000 it was 6 months ago. So things are getting better. The reason I'm so busy and I sound like a croaky voice, I've been a master of ceremonies for an event today and a TV commentator for some basketball games. So I'm a bit tired, but it's okay. So forgive me if my voice sounds a little bit croaky. But things are back, slowly getting better. I don't want to be too complacent because I just had an event and one of my colleagues got COVID. So he's in the hospital right now. I did as many tests as possible, and God bless, I'm okay. But so that's the pandemic. Things were tough, and then it's gotten better. And then in terms of, oops, camera dropping right there as I'm getting to the second topic. But yeah, my children, they're everything to me. My wife, thank God she's not working. I say that in a good way because someone to keep the positive vibe with the children at home, someone to be the internet troubleshooter and the IT solutions provider. So yeah, we're learning every day. Things that hopefully the kids go back to school next year, and the world that, just to wrap it up, the world that I want the children to live in is an open world, a world that, hey, we don't mind. Hold on, I'm just gonna switch power here because I think I'm gonna take out the mic. Sorry. I just want them to live in a world where it's okay to admit that you have a problem. It's okay to admit that you don't get things right. I'll just share with you a story of my niece before I wrap it up. Her name is Zara. She was being barky she's our neighbor. She was being barky at my 2 children, and I just pulled her aside and said, "Hey, are you okay?" She goes, "No, I'm not, Ayah Ben." Ayah Ben means Uncle Ben in Malay. "I'm not." I said, I don't know what I'm angry at." I said, "It's okay. It's completely okay if you don't know. We're always here for you as a family." And those kind of sound bites and sentences is what I encourage my family and I to keep mimicking all day long, because now we wear a mask, we have to do tests and everything like that. So yes, we live in a world of tests, medical tests, but we also hopefully live in a world of it's okay to admit that you have a problem, but don't just admit it. Find out how you can resolve that problem, and it starts with open communication, just like I did with my 2 depressions many years ago. So I'll leave it as that.
So much, Ben. Such an authentic speech. That's how I got to know you. You bring the truth to the table. As a father, we talked about food on the table in a February special where Ben was my co-host for 1 month. Every day there was a co-host to talk about the situation of the pandemic, in the heights of the pandemic. Thank you, Ben. And Ben, I'm glad that you made it because you have a real show that you are hosting there in Malaysia, and you hear about different parts of the world is handling the economy opening up differently. And we'd like to go into a panel session. We can talk a bit about the world where you are right now. And I can see that America is opening up very gradually and successfully right now, people without the mask in the streets. Parts of Europe is recovering, but parts of Europe, like in Germany, is going down again. Singapore is opening up. I think there are a lot of struggles, and I think it goes back to the objective of today's conversation. The world, if we emerge out of this, and if we've got put heads together like ourselves, fathers, doctors, business leaders, some of you, and professors, and also Isaac, who represents the voice of his generation. How should we emerge out of this? And also, Richard spoke it so beautifully and eloquently, and also Elizabeth, and also Ben, who talks about real issues that we face every day. And these are the issues that we can't reach out to neighbors, because neighbors they need help also, right? And the governments are right now, like example in Singapore, they have been digging into the reserves for 2 years. And it will come a point in time where they say no more help can be given because the debt ceiling is too high, right? You are on your own. So I think the conversation becomes real on a macro perspective. What can we do as a community? And some of you are community leaders in your groups. And I'm not a community leader. I'm a community leader in my home. Me and my husband only. So I'm the leader here. Outside, he's the leader. So, I think we are talking real here right now. And not only that, as we emerge from 2021, hopefully, out of the pandemic, we are going to look at humanity and the world differently. Hopefully, the policymakers will take things differently, because pandemic hit the poorest the worst, right? The masses the worst. And not only that, Isaac talked about climate change. She talked about weapons of mass destruction, nuclear. He talks about accepting of diversity. And also Ben talks about acceptance and openness for his children. I would like to take this to that level of talk. Also, coming back to you, Isaac, would you like to open this and tell us, like, more concretely, you voiced out in your video that you would like to run for the president of the United States in 2046, when you are 36 years old, right? Am I right?
2048, I will be 36. But anyway, thank you. I am so honored to be here, and I was so honored to get the opportunity to speak here. And I want to become president. I want to have a leadership, because right now in our world there are and education is not just a good thing, because education can also lead to technological development. And technological development has created good, for sure. Technological development is what is allowing us to connect. It's what's allowing me to do this, do that, survive. However, technological development has also created weapons in war. And so we need to teach our children in schools empathy, because if not, that makes them vulnerable to the idea that others are worse than them for some selfish reason that even I honestly have no idea about. Racism stems from lack of empathy for others and the belief that you are better. And it's just some sort of weird justification for that, I feel. Racism is just a justification for being selfish. Being selfish is thinking that you are better than others. You have more priority than others, and that is why racism exists.
Wow.
Racism is only there to justify that. Racism is racism in religion, sexism in gender. That is used to justify men being better than women, whites being better than blacks, Asians being better than Hispanics, this, that. However, we are all equally human inside, and we cannot be selfish in times where being even one bit selfish or arguing could lead to destruction of mankind. We are not just endangering us. We are the only people endangering us, and we need to save us. And I think that the people who are contributing to climate change and global warming the least, people who are poor, who don't have food on their plates, people who are like that, people who have the least to contribute to global warming have the most to be affected by it. I was so touched by the words of, I believe, Lillian, when she said that if many communities lost fish while they were dependent on the ocean, then what are they going to do? We are taking resources for ourselves, our own gain, and sometimes for no reason whatsoever other than war trophies or anything like that, not being considerate for others. And sometimes we even push down others who are less fortunate than us. We disregard them. Instead of trying to help them, we laugh at them, we tease them. We don't give them any sort of, we don't, and there is no justification besides racism for such evil acts. We are not Muslim or Hispanic. We might be Muslim or Hispanic or any race, but we should not regard ourselves as different just because of that. In fact, we should not put a negative mindset to all our differences, but we should put a positive mindset to them. Differences are not what differences are what a lot of people fear. Lots of people don't really like differences, and they use differences in justification or scapegoat for their own selfishness, for for stepping upon others, for saying that they are better than others, and that cannot be justified. And so,
Wow.
and so racism, sexism, and what is causing the main seed of this conflict. And it causes so many economic problems and distracts us from what is really happening in this world. Climate change, the ozone layer starting to decay, and the global extinction due to climate change, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Since we are focusing on this and that geopolitical stuff because we believe that we are better than others, we are never going to get anywhere with all our crises. And we are the only people who can save us. We can't turn to the animals or nature to save us because they don't have technology. And honestly, if they did, they would probably kill us because of how badly we have mistreated them, how badly we have treated the animals, how much concern we have had for them. Well, little concern. We have tore down their forests, their homes, for really no for wood and stuff like that, when we could turn to other materials such as concrete or eco-friendly materials. We are polluting the sea with garbage, as Lillian mentioned. There is this huge pile of garbage assembling in the Pacific Ocean. And so this is polluting the local water. This is killing fish, whales, and the entire ocean. And so we don't have the least concern for animals. We have the most concern for people with differences to us. We actually have the least concern for people who are different than us. We have the most concern for ourselves. We are biased towards ourselves and selfishness because it's just sort of natural. But we have to overcome that bias and realize that it's not just you, your family, your community, the entire human community, but the entire world, the entire globe that will be affected by what you do, or what choices you make. And we have to make this impact Because if we don't, people will keep getting distracted on terrorism, on war, and on this will only cause suffering and death and distraction from the real problems that we have in our world. And so that's why racism and
Isaac, would you like to tell us about the 2 books that you just wrote?
So the first book that I wrote was The Love, and I started writing it when I was 4 and finished it when I was 6. And so I wrote it because I was seeing lots of terrorism, examples of terrorism around the world. And so this is a copy of my book, The Love. Thank you. So anyway, I wrote this book because I was seeing the instances of terrorism and horror all around the world, starting with 9/11. And I was really reminded by one time when I went to the mosque for Friday prayers. And I asked the imam, "Can you please pray for the United States of America?" And the imam said, "No, I will not." And then that just reminded me, and it came back to me that there were so many people hating on each other for no reason other than religion or race. And so, especially religion is a huge problem nowadays. And
Isaac, would you talk about the latest book you just published? Would you raise it up?
Yes. So I wrote my niece as a sort of response to my book, The Love, because The Love was a book about how terrorism and religious terrorism, especially in the Muslim sector, was rising. And so I wrote my niece as a way to sort of respond to new things such as the crisis in Afghanistan or all around the
world.
world.
Raise up your book to show us, because there's a lot of viewers. Yeah, that's Manish. Yeah, tell us a little bit about the book quickly, and then we'll come back to you again. Tell us about your book, Manish. What does it mean?
I wrote it as a response to the terrorism that is going all around the world, and that's a response to my first book. Because I felt that my first book just wasn't polished enough. It wasn't that good. And I honestly felt that I sidetracked here and there. And so I wanted to relate what I saw in India and all over the world to the ideas that I thought that we need empathy and love in our education system because others are killing each other all around the world. There was terrorism, war, and discrimination happening all over the world. And so that is why I wrote my niece, in order to combat this. I wrote my niece in order to combat this and suggest that education needs both empathy and imagination. So we need empathy because we need a world without terrorism. That is why I wrote my niece.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the voice of a generation. Let's give him a round of applause. Unbelievable. I'd like someone to respond to what he said and also give your points of view about some of the things that you did talk about in your earlier speech. Thank you, Isaac. A lot of issues that brought up, and you can see that he's such a passionate person. He's a child prodigy. I saw his videos that Professor, I can't remember his name, but he was tested and coached by the MIT professor himself, the scientist. And he was, what's his name?
Dr. Daniel Kabat.
Yeah, and I think he astounded a lot of scientists by being able to answer PhD questions at the age of 4. And he was solving solutions with formula. And these are not regurgitation. You can't teach a 4-year-old at that time. He's 9 now. About all these formula. I mean, not in my lifetime. I'm just telling you. Not in my lifetime. So thank you, Isaac, for giving that wonderful speech. A lot of reflection from there, a lot of truth. I think you've got lots of viewers now coming in. They're supporting you. You're live now. Isaac raised a lot of issues. Anyone would like to respond to Isaac or even continue where his speech were? Anyone? Elizabeth?
Yes.
Colette?
I would like to. I would like to piggyback off of what Dr. Richard Lowe was talking about when he said it starts with us. He's absolutely right, because when you point the finger, you have to remember that there's three fingers pointing back at you. And we have to know that what can we do to help, and what can we do to make an impact, not only locally, but globally, because it does start with us. And we can't sit around and just look at the news and figure out, let the news speak for us. We have to speak for ourselves. So we have to go out in the streets, the highways, and the byways, and make sure that we're making a global impact, and making that impact not for only the children, the teachers, the parents, all over. With my book, Just Like My Dad, which I have here as well, that's what I'm trying to do as far as get it out into the school systems here in Brevard County, where I live, on the national level, and even globally. That's why I'm trying to get it out as well. Also in Spanish version, have a workbook. So this can be a teaching tool for the teachers, the parents, the adults. And we have to make sure that we start a conversation, and the conversation starts at home.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's have anyone who just jumps right in.
I was going to say, I agree with Elizabeth when she was saying that, it starts with us. But going back to our future president, I just want to let you know that you are a remarkable young man. And although I'll be 70 years old at the time that you are planning to be president, I would love to be your vice president. But seriously, you touched on so many aspects of the needs and the subjects, conversations that we need to be having. And while many are watching and they're saying, wow, he's 7 years old, I'm impressed by the fact that this is where your mindset is for your age. There are a lot of adults who do not want to hold these difficult conversations because we are bound by tradition, we're bound by ethnicity, we're bound by social class, we're bound by our locations. And so we feel as though what's happening in our backyard is more important than what's happening across the globe. And I'm glad that you brought it all into perspective, because you made us think about those difficult conversations that we really need to have. And I'm a firm believer that we need to have the conversations while we can have the conversation. You're absolutely right. We're taking advantage of everything around us, and we're not noticing how it's going to affect us in the future. And while I joke and say that I'll be 70 at the time that you're aspiring to be the president of the United States, even now in this position, I need to do more to bring awareness to all of the subjects that you mentioned. I am a firm believer of women and women's empowerment. And as I spoke earlier, I'm firmly on the framework of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But you made an excellent argument in that all of these things are domino pieces. And if we do not align ourselves with one aspect of change, it eventually falls into the other aspects of change, and to the point where we're talking about global crisis such as climate change and all of those things, but we are not starting with the immediate conversation of treating everyone as equals and providing access to capital and providing access to information and ensuring that we're doing our part as individuals and not binding ourselves by our social class, our ethnicity, or our location. So kudos to you for having that brilliant mindset, right, thinking on the level that you're thinking.
Thank you so much, Tia. And let's have let's have everyone to speak for the next 20 seconds or so to respond in this panel. Let's have Professor Koh from National University of Singapore.
Thank you, Vicky, and thank you, everyone here. I like to echo the part where we need to act, because you said it so correctly. I think Richard mentioned about perception. This perceived idea that I'm different and I have to show the world that I'm better than the other one, the other sex, the other country, So what I can do, and I think of it straight away, is how to penetrate into the education system. Let the people see the consequences of their action. Their action, all right, will be like a boomerang that comes back to Earth. If only they can perceive, starting with the climate change, how the animals in the world, the fishes in the sea, I think when they can perceive this in the right light with enough knowledge, all right, and getting the right influence, I think that would be an excellent start. I really enjoyed how Professor Isaac just break it down, and for just so that everybody else get a chance to share. This is all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes. Would you like to take on the next comment? Anyone? Is that yeah, Christopher or Colette?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I just wanted, with this discussion, what's coming up for me is that pretty much everyone is traumatized to some point, either from the COVID-19 pandemic, where we're afraid to be next to each other, we're afraid to be close to each other, we don't want to get sick, and getting back out into the world and being fearful, or even that somebody is better than the other, even that stems from trauma. And so I just want to add that I think it's just so important that we all take individual responsibility for our own mental health. It was brought up about depression and about the neighbors' kids acting out. And so for me, I just think it's really important that we start with ourselves, healing our PTSD, and then helping other people, listening to other people, creating spaces for other people to heal themselves as well. So.
Let's have Richard.
Hi,
Richard, as a father and also as a humanity, you've got lots of things to say in your sermon in inverted commas. Tell us, what's your last final word for us in this panel discussion?
Well, when we listen, one of the challenges of humanity is selfishness. We live in a broken world. And we can see from a very young age in a child and a baby that the world revolves around themselves. And unfortunately, humans are innately built in with this sort of selfish ambition. The media often supports it's all about me, it's all about being better than the other, collecting more material goods, but ultimately, that all, we can't take it with us. And when we look at what can we do, is can we rise above our own little world and transcend that, so that it's not just about me and what I can get, but actually what I can give and what I can contribute at the end of the day. And I think, if we can mature as individuals, all of us, including myself, so that we can be thinking more about serving others and what we can do to contribute as opposed to consuming, then it would make for ultimately a better world.
Yes, I think Richard, has wrapped it up beautifully. One more question. I know that we have to have the discipline to end, and we already surpassed the time, but we've got onto very deep levels of discussion, and I can't even want to interject because you've got such a deep issues, and I hope that we can continue our conversation at another point in the early part of 2022. But it's such an honor to have all of you, especially to have Isaac, who frames the future for us, and that's his vision for the future. Isaac, is there any final words, final reminders for the generation, like us?
I was so touched by how everybody spoke about humanity and the crises that we are experiencing, especially keynote speaker Ben. And so I was Dr. Ben. I'm sorry. So I was so touched by everybody here, and I honestly am so excited to be and I am so excited to be here and so honored to be speaking to all of these great minds, so many people who have experienced so much more than me, and I positively can say that we need to fix our broken world, just like
Yes.
Dr. Richard addressed. We need to fix our little internal worlds that we are internally living in, because
Yes.
we
Thank you,
most of
Isaac, so much. Yeah, Isaac, we'll come back to you for the next fourth International Humanities Summit, and that's for sure. You're not going to run away, Isaac. You are the voice of your generation, and we got to hear it from him. He's so eloquent. Any final words from anyone in 30 seconds? The floor is yours. What about Tia? Do you want to say anything, Tia, to wrap up?
Yes, I would just like to say thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you for exposing various facets of humanity and what we need to do to go forward. I am in full gear of doing my part, and I'm encouraging others to do likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Is there anyone else before I'm locked up by the technology expert who says that we need to keep to the time? Anyone else? Elizabeth, Colette, Professor, and Richard? Anything else?
I would like
Before
to
we
say
say goodbye.
I would like to say thank you to you, Vicky, for everything that you have done to put this whole event together. Also for CJ to invite me, and I would love to come back in 2022 to be on the panel again.
Yes, and thank you so much, Elizabeth. And you, ladies and gentlemen, have been, it is such an honor to invite you to Singapore. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I am able to do this because of technology and, of course, because the forces of God have brought us together. And like what Isaac say, you know, we have to embrace differences, and that's the world he envisaged in. Not only him, I think all of us crave for that. Right, and also Richard, as the children are growing up in the third culture, you know, in a very unique situation that Richard is, and a lot of families are like what Richard is, right? Intercultural marriages, and children grow up in the different parts of the world. And I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and let's give everyone a big round of applause to end 2021. And a shout out and a thanks to Lowe Creative Services, Dr. Moby for Lifestyle TV USA, and also CJ for a cheering session A, and a little bit more tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, come back and tune in for veterans exclusive Heroes of Our Times, to listen to 5 veterans to talk about their stories behind the uniform. Real life stories beyond CNN, beyond Fox News, and beyond all the Wall Street journals. And that's real talk for you. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Till then.